U.S. Customs and Border Protection officials estimate more than 1 million migrants will arrive at the U.S. border this year. It's the latest sign of a surge in those trying to enter the country. If the marker reaches more than 1 million, it would mirror a similar uptick from 2019. That's when nearly 978,000 migrants were taken into custody under the Trump administration. But the Biden administration has been struggling to process the soaring numbers in recent months. There are currently over 18,000 unaccompanied migrant children in government custody. They've also not granted access to the media until this week, when cameras were finally permitted into one of the nation's busiest migrant processing facilities for the first time. CBS News Homeland Security and Justice reporter Nicole Sganga was inside the facility. She joins me now from Donna, Texas. Hi there, Nicole. So describe for us what you saw inside.
Well, Elaine, this building behind me, the Donna Temporary Processing Center, has more than 16 times the number of unaccompanied migrant children and family members as it should under CDC guidelines. There are only supposed to be 250 migrants in this building because of CDC guidelines, and right now there are more than 4,100 according to CBP. Now, walking through this facility, hopefully we can show you and our viewers some of these images. We encountered pods where unaccompanied migrant children were sleeping on the floor, their mattresses, one next to each other. They are given 3 meals a day. They are given snacks, but lining up at snack time. There's no room for social distancing, let alone personal space. We saw, children lining up shoulder to shoulder in this facility. We also visited one of the recreational play areas where I saw very young children playing. I had asked one of the Border Patrol officials how frequently kids are able to get into this room to color, to see the TV, and I was told, well, they don't do that anymore. In fact, this facility is so crowded that they have to use their recreational area in order to house some of the youngest unaccompanied migrant children, as young as 4 months old. That outdoor recreational facility that you might have seen with kids playing some soccer is also being used right now. It doubles as a COVID testing site for before kids are transferred to HHS facilities. And so this is a very, very crowded facility right now. Very concerning when you think about the fact that we are in the middle of a pandemic, but this isn't even the only place where they're holding migrants. Not too far, just west of here at the International Bridge, port of entry, they are also using that as a temporary holding area for migrants. So right now, migrants, after they're apprehended, are being held underneath that International Bridge, exposed to the elements. And part of the reason we have this backlog here is simply because we don't have the capacity. These facilities are not designed to house children, for a couple of hours, let alone days.
Right, so these are just supposed to be temporary processing facilities, Nicole. So why are children being held there for so long?
Yeah, it's a good question, Elaine. And right now, this facility behind me, more than 2,000 unaccompanied migrant children and family members have been housed here over the legal limit, which is 72 hours. And part of the reason, why they're not designed that way is they're really just intake centers. They're supposed to be where, migrants are processed for, their biometrics are taken, they're in some cases given a notice to appear in court, but they're not supposed to stay here. There's no educational resources or, long-term health facilities here. All of the bathrooms are porta potties. And so it's really not ideal to stay here for long, but we learned yesterday that dozens of unaccompanied migrant children have been in this facility for more than 2 weeks. And in fact, the average unaccompanied migrant child or family unit will stay here for 133 hours, or about 5 days. And that's in part because the facilities they're supposed to be transferred to, run by HHS, Health and Human Services, are not ready yet. They don't have the capacity, to transfer those kids yet to those facilities. Now, HHS is trying to stand up these emergency shelters quickly. There were 6 stood up under the Biden administration so far. They're working on 4 more right now in Texas, including an annex, the facility you actually see behind me now, that is being built at the moment as we speak.
Well, Nicole, explain the current criteria for granting asylum and what happens to those who are expelled.
Yeah, Elaine, it's important for our viewers to understand that under U.S. and international law, there is a legal right to pursue asylum here in the United States and many other countries. There is refugee status that is defined by a well-founded fear of persecution based on 5 grounds. The reason why so many migrants are not able to apply for asylum right now, though, dates back to the Trump administration when they leveraged a public health order called Title 42, which essentially in pandemic times expelled all of the migrants back into Mexico. Now, the Biden administration has continued this policy of expelling single adults and some family units back into Mexico. So what CBP border officials tell us now is they're actually seeing something they call self-separation. Families that are coming across the southwest border being apprehended and expelled back into Mexico, and then parents that are letting their children go back alone into the United States in hopes that they can apply for asylum. Listen to this from the Deputy Chief of the U.S. Border Patrol, Raul Ortiz.
Yeah, there is self-separation occurring. I can guarantee you that.
Can you explain what that is, by the way?
Yeah, so this is a family unit that may make the trek all the way from Central America to our southern border here, and then they may make a decision to turn over the unaccompanied child to a smuggler and then allow that child to be trafficked, and they may remain in Mexico. We've seen that on occasion because we've apprehended the kids previously as a family unit. So those are one of those things that we are awfully concerned about. We're taking whatever steps we can to address that. There's plaza bosses, cartels, organizations that are taking advantage of this situation. And so as a law enforcement organization, we're going to do everything to take the fight to them. We're going to take their vehicles, we're going to take their money. Any proceeds that they're benefiting from this illegal trade, we're going to certainly try and perform some sort of consequence against them.
It's really sobering to hear those details about what is happening at the southern border. Nicole, you also spoke with Customs and Border Protection Supervisor of Special Operations, Christian Alvarez. Here's what he said about the background of some of these migrants and asylum seekers.
These are all unaccompanied children. The first 2 were traveling siblings. One's a 12-year-old, one's a 17-year-old. They're from Honduras. They say they're trying to get to where their mom's at in Louisiana, New Orleans. They claim they came in a raft. They were all, which is typical of what we're seeing right now. They'll load up. These appear to be all family units and unaccompanied children, and these smugglers will load them up, 15 on an inflatable raft, and just ferry them over, drop them off, not walk with them, just tell them just walk north, and then take the ferry back, load up another group and bring them back, and they'll do that back and forth throughout the night.
Nicole, what more can you tell us about why people are making this journey to the United States?
Well, in that video there, Elaine, we had just encountered 27 unaccompanied migrant children and family members, and we spoke to a woman who carried her 2-month-old child on her back onto a raft to get from Guatemala to the United States. And we heard story after story about some of the push factors of why people are coming here. We often hear a little bit about the pull factors, what the Biden administration is doing on messaging. Are they sending the right message that the border is closed? But really what we heard from CBP officials was that smugglers are playing, certainly a role in this journey in convincing migrants to make the trek. Some of the images they're seeing on TV right now giving them hope, and hearing directly from some of these asylum seekers about the conditions in Central America, political oppression, natural disasters, climate change, all contributing to their journeys here, which are, Elaine, as you could hear in that video, quite treacherous.
All right, Nicole Sganga reporting from the border for us. Nicole, thank you very much.
Thank you.